No matter how strange it sounds, in our modern world, people sometimes abandon their cars in the streets, in abandoned garages, and even in forests. And perhaps many of you will find this illogical and absurd, but if you dig deeper, it's not always entirely true. Hello there, and today we're going to be taking a look at what cars look like when they're left abandoned for many years, completely without the attention of their owners. Dodge Charger Daytona. This amazing find is actually a 1969 muscle car. Popular at the time, this Dodge Charger Daytona looks very rumpled, rusty, and dusty, even though it's the legend of the NASCAR circuit racing. It turns out that this car was a special version of the famous Charger and was released in a limited edition, only 503 copies. But the main feature of this car is still considered to be the 23-inch tall stabilizer wing on the rear deck. And now, you can see one of these cars completely abandoned and useless. And if we look at this found car in more detail, it was actually painted in the sports color R4 Charger Red, and the number 20,555 miles is forever fixed on its odometer. And by the way, under its hood, the original Dodge 440 Magnum 8-cylinder engine with 375 horsepower has been preserved in good condition. There is talk that initially this Daytona was bought by a local judge for his wife in 1974. It was sold to the second owner, who then later forgot about the muscle car. It's also worth noting that they found the Daytona in 2016 in exactly the condition as you can see in this photo, but sold it at auction for $150,000. Do you think this car was worth the money? Share your opinion in the comments below. Ferrari Enzo. All people have their own problems, and the difficulty that the people of Dubai face every single day we don't fully understand. I think it's no secret to anyone that the city is simply drowning in luxury. It's hard for the average person to understand. Among other things, in Dubai there are many abandoned luxury cars that are covered with a thick layer of dust in the airport parking lots or even just along the roadsides of the entire city. So what's the deal here? The thing is that many foreign citizens, after declaring bankruptcy of their commercial enterprises or even unsuccessful real estate transactions or ventures, simply left the region. They dumped everything, literally. For this example, a Ferrari was found in a cemetery. It turned out a car owner from Britain went bankrupt during the crisis and owed the Arab authorities about $150 million. Without inventing anything better, the Englishman simply fled, leaving his Ferrari. And this car is one of 400 from a limited collection worth about $1 million. Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster. Not so long ago in Los Angeles, a real treasure was discovered, an abandoned rare 1961 Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster. If you look at the condition of the car, then we can safely conclude that it stood for many decades. Experts are sure that the storage conditions of this car were very far from ideal, which is why the elegant Mercedes body was covered with corrosive rust. But not only the appearance of the car was affected, but also the internal filling. So for example, the saloon was in a deplorable state, as well as the soft convertible roof. And given all of this, we can assume that the restoration of this Roadster will cost a lot of money. But despite this, even in such a sad state, the Mercedes-Benz 300 SL Roadster is a rather expensive product. After all, these days it was resold for $800,000. As it turned out, payment of such an amount became possible only because this model is really rare. It turned out that during the period from 1957 to 1963, only 1,858 copies were collected, among which only 101 were created in the exclusive blue color. I'd also like to note that the Coupe and Roadster Mercedes-Benz 300 SL are the first production cars in the world that were developed with direct fuel injection. It was through this technology that manufacturers were able to raise the capacity of the 3-liter 6 to 240 horsepower. Ferrari Dino 246 GTS. The story's been going on since 1974 when one of the residents of California presented his new wife a new Ferrari Dino for her birthday. But when the economic crisis erupted in the country, the man urgently needed a lot of money. It would be a shame to take the car back from his wife, so he didn't come up with anything better than just staging its theft. For what? Why, to get paid for the insurance, of course. This unlucky businessman decided to hide it by burying it in his yard, and 4 years later, some children discovered the Ferrari while playing in the yard. Despite all this, collector Mike Spinelli still wanted to purchase this Ferrari Dino. And you know, he didn't fail. Indeed, today such a car costs at least $500,000. Rolls-Royce Silver Spur 2. In one of the districts of Dubai, a rare Rolls-Royce was discovered several years ago. The history of this luxury car in the past is not at all simple. As it turned out, back in the 90s, the owner of this luxurious sedan was a local businessman, and after he suddenly disappeared, the Rolls-Royce also disappeared from sight. And they found the car only after 15 years on the outskirts of the city. Today, this Rolls-Royce stands in a park of abandoned cars where, along with it, there are many more rare cars from the last century. And they're all under a pile of dust and dirt. The mileage of this Rolls-Royce is just over 30,000 miles, and under the hood it has a 6.75-liter V8 engine. This model was produced only in the period from 1990 to 1993, and during all this time the world only saw 1,658 copies. Abandoned Formula One cars. Recently in France, a whole cemetery of Formula One Fireballs was discovered, and among the copies of the abandoned collection, there were models of royal races from the 1980s and 1990s. In these unique frames, we can see sports cars Ferrari, Renault, and Lotus, who peacefully stand on a car trailer right in the open. Of course, during all this time, the cars have deteriorated significantly and do not look at all impressive. But some media say that they doubt the authenticity of the abandoned cars. And the thing is, some of these race cars actually have the wrong numbers, or even the wrong colors that they wore while they were competing on the tracks. But even so, the collection of copies is of great value at the moment. Of course, it should be noted that today these sports cars are simply in a disgusting state. Look at this. They're completely covered with moss, the paint peeled off and crumbled, the tires were flat, and some models completely grew into the ground. Most likely, some museum owned this collection, or it could have even been privately owned. But there's no answer to this question, why the cars are in such a neglected state. Bugatti Type 57S. It's simply impossible to believe, but this abandoned handsome car at an auction in 2009 was bought by one wealthy collector who wanted to remain anonymous. Imagine, the amount for it was about $3 million, which of course makes it the most expensive abandoned supercar from this video. And you know, many things are good about this car. Firstly, only 17 of these cars were ever produced. Secondly, its original owner was Earl Howe, the founder of the Club of British Writers. But it's also worth noting the important fact that the retro car stood in a closed garage for 47 years, which is just unbelievable. By the way, all the released Bugatti Type 57S cars are truly exclusive, and as the story goes, Howe once sold the car to Dr. Harold Carr, who in turn played a little with the new toy and then left it gathering dust in the garage for as much as 47 years. Batmobile. There are millions of Batman fans around the world, and I'm sure many of them would dream of their own version of the Batmobile. If the famous car of this iconic superhero would belong to you, then you would 100% take care of it, am I right? And it's completely unclear to me how anyone could leave this car to simply rot in the forest. The photographer who discovered this find did not indicate its location, possibly for personal reasons, but the fact remains. As you can see, the condition of this unique car is just awful. Of course, we can assume that this car was once exhibited at Six Flags theme parks or the like, but the question still remains. Why did the owner show such a casual attitude towards the Batmobile? And that's all for today. What do you think about these abandoned cars? Be sure to write your opinion down in the comments below, and don't forget to click that like button if you liked this video. Thanks for watching, don't forget to subscribe.